This is The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you beneath the reps and routines and into the raw, unfiltered stories of athletes, trainers, guides, and coaches who've battled through injury, burnout, and life's curveballs to come back stronger. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and every week we peel back the layers to uncover what really shapes a coach, the setbacks, the scars, and the rebuild. Because behind every strong body is a story of resilience. This is where vulnerability meets strength, where training gets personal, and where we stop pretending that we have it all figured out. If you're a trainer, athlete, or anyone who's been knocked down and fought your way back, you're in the right place. The Mindful Trainer, strip back the surface and train deeper. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Let's get on to the show. Welcome to The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of athletes, coaches, trainers, and guides who have overcome challenges to reach their goals. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and today we are putting the mindful in trainer with my special guest, Jason Durtschi, a mental health therapist based in Portland, Oregon, and I might add, one of my closest friends. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Melanie. I'm really looking forward to it. Long time in the making.
Long time in the making. We have talked about this. I feel especially grateful when friends are willing to join my show. It means something a little bit different. We have some really good content to share with the listeners today, and I thought we'd start with just letting them get to know us a little bit. Jason and I met over 20 years ago. We both have seen each other through our ups and downs during that 20 years. You've seen me get fired, get injured, start over, move. We both have lived in different places, and we relate so much to each other in how we relate to land and place as we're journeying through this life. I'm just wondering if you have any poignant thoughts about that.
Our connection is very important to both of us, which is, I always say it's better that way. It's less awkward, and it's even. No, I value it every day. Yeah, I think when we get together, we don't only talk about deep stuff, but we get on a roll sometimes, and it feels I was thinking about, I think the word synergy just feels like we have these ideas and we jump right in every time we meet up. So, and as far as the ups and downs, yes, I would agree with that assessment. I think we've been through it. Everyone has, right, in their own way. We're not special in that sense. And
Right.
we have our own stories, right? But it's definitely been a journey, a lot of moving, a lot of growth.
Yeah, we've kind
everything.
of seen each other grow up over the years.
We're trying.
Wait, grow up? No,
Never
we don't
too
want to do
late,
that.
but who wants that?
Like you said, it's one of those special friendships that I think, there were times when we might have gone a year or two and then reconnected and just pick right back up. And that's always when you know what a special friendship it is. I've always been grateful for that.
Me too.
Ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's go deep.
We're going to go deep here. Jason is going to allow me to excavate, if you will, a really interesting moment in his life that happened actually shortly after we met 20 some years ago. You and your twin brother survived an avalanche.
Older brother. It doesn't really
It was
matter.
your older brother.
I do have an identical twin who's also a therapist, but is my older brother.
It was your
Couple
older
years
brother.
older.
Okay.
Yeah.
All this time I thought it was your twin. Correction. Jason and his older brother were hiking in the Utah backcountry in the wintertime, and they survived an avalanche. I remember that avalanche making the national news. You were interviewed on one of the major morning programs, and it was a big deal. I remember us talking about it so many years ago, and then as I was preparing for the conversation today, it came to me again. Here you were on national TV. You had just had this near-death experience. What was happening for you beneath the surface?
Panic, numbness. It was just surreal, I think is probably the best word. Cliche, but I think that's why it feels like this is life happening to me, and there's nothing you can really do about it. That kind of force of nature, you have to sort of surrender. There's tips like, writing it down. That did not enter my mind at the time. My brother, yes, he kind of went down with it, but for me, it was more like tumbling down, lost my backpack and snowboard. I was wearing snowshoes. We were going to snowshoe up and then snowboard down. And that made it a lot more difficult when I was buried. 3 different avalanches. And when you're wearing snowshoes and your snowboard flew down and you're buried up to, I think, my waist, maybe, it's almost impossible to get out of that. You have to go all the way to the bottom to the snowshoes. So it was, anyway, a lot of details there, but it was pretty impossible situation.
I didn't realize you were in snowshoes. So you have multiple attachment points, unlike a ski, where you
Right.
have to release a binding. But
Totally.
in this case, you have to manipulate straps and
Yeah, which isn't fun to do even when it's not under feet of snow. But yeah, it was a trip.
definitely a trip. And you said a keyword that I want to lean into, and that was a lot of numbness.
Mhm.
I think it's common that when something significant happens in our life or that's supposed to be significant, we want to extract a lot of meaning from that. Sometimes it comes immediately, sometimes it comes many years later, maybe sometimes it doesn't come at all. Or you've got 20 more years of career under your belt. How do you frame that now?
Yeah, that's a great question. One that I thought about a bit, not only for this show. Um, I I think it's very neurological, psychological, the state that I was in at the time. It was the avalanche caught me at a very transitional time in life between degrees, which I think is a tough time for a lot of people when figuring out what to do when they grow up. So I was definitely in a depression and numb. Didn't feel a lot in my body, probably partially dissociated, but it went on for months. So it was wild. I had this experience in that state when the avalanche episode, when I experienced that moment, I felt almost nothing physically, emotionally. It was just, oh, there's an avalanche coming. I may or may not survive, which in most states of my life, including now, would be a completely different experience. It was a gradual process of integration. Afterward, even being on a couple of these shows, it felt really odd for one because multiple people died in this, and I was so lucky to have survived. But it was an odd experience overall. But it felt very little, talking about it. But over the years with integration, it's kind of interesting what distance can do, and like I feel a lot more emotion about it. And just lucky more than anything.
Lucky.
Mhm.
Lucky to have survived when others did not.
Right, exactly. And these were 20-year-old kids, who were just having a moment with their snowboards, and they're 100 feet up there. So that's about as close to death as we can come.
Which is part of the allure of being there, I might say. I don't
If
know
you're a
that we.
badass like yourself,
Do you know what I remembered as I was preparing for this? I had hiked that exact same location, and we're not going to say where this took place, but I had been there 2 weeks before you when I was home for Christmas break. I remember when you called me and told me this happened, I was stunned. So within those 2 weeks, you were in a life-threatening situation with that snowpack. I, how do we help ourselves understand that it's okay not to feel something?
yeah. I think like any emotion, I would consider numbness an emotional state. It's just not one that we feel in the same way. Maybe it's more subtle, but there's body manifestations like dissociation. We're experiencing that. Maybe it's our psyches, bodies, brain, spirit, whatever you want to say, kind of trying to protect us is one way to look at it. I think there can be some judgment. I look at it in terms of grief. The first thing I tell my therapy clients when we're discussing grief is whatever it is that comes up for you is 100% okay. You're not choosing it. We don't choose our thoughts and feelings. There's things we can do, of course, to lean into that, manipulate it, work with it, but we don't choose that. So if it's numbness, that could last a long time. I think for a lot of clients, many who've been traumatized would describe the feeling of feeling numb as bad or as difficult as being in acute pain. So I think for me it wasn't quite that way, but it's unsettling. It's like having a limb that's numb. It's a specific kind of fear and bizarreness, but all to be honored.
All to be honored. Yes, I like that. And it's serving a purpose in that moment. And it sounds like, if I understand, numbness is not a nothing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And can I ask you to explain dissociation? I think I know what you mean by that word.
I'm so curious what your thoughts. I'm going to do that therapy thing of putting the question back to you.
You're going to give me therapy right
Terrible.
now.
We're friends. We can do this.
We
A
can
couple
do
other
this.
people
This
are
is
watching, but
welcome
big
to our
deal.
conversation.
But this is what we do. This is what it's like to be friends with a therapist too.
I have to say, I hope everyone out there has a friend who's a therapist.
We riff well. You're already there, minus the degree.
Yes. The life
Absolutely.
experience degree.
All of it, and the way you express yourself for sure. Your awareness is really stand out.
Thank you.
What would you say for you, just from what you've heard and what you may have experienced? I don't know if you have.
I feel like I have based on my own definition of it. I've always thought of it as a bit of a separation between my physical self and my awareness. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. That kind of tracks with what you're saying, like um an inability to feel, almost a
Sure.
separateness
Yeah.
from emotion.
Separateness is a great word. It's
Okay.
kind of, I think a lot of people who dissociate, it's a trauma reaction. I think it's our, we'll say body brain trying to protect ourselves in a way that's not necessarily adaptive or comfortable, but it does serve a purpose. So I think just making peace with that, again, honoring our body brain experience, whatever it's trying to do, awkwardly as it may be, kind of a disconnection for many people between body and cognition and surreal element, right? So that's why I think with the avalanche, it was that moment of dissociation almost. Like I couldn't feel my body. I think a lot of people experience that. Even other people can sometimes not feel completely real. So that lack of a feeling of realness is definitely characteristic of dissociation for many people.
So fascinating the way we are wired, isn't it?
Yeah. Bizarre
And
and beautiful.
bizarre and beautiful. And we are human after all. I mean, to have these survival experiences, why would we think that's outside the norm
Right.
as human beings? You are still an outdoorsman. I know
Thank
you,
you for the
you know,
title. I'm barely worthy, but yes, I love the outdoors and try to get into them as often as possible, like yourself.
that's always been one of the ways that you and I have connected is this joy and love of being able to move our bodies and get into nature. And we've both tapped into that quality to support our own mental and physical health. It's not unusual, everybody listening, for Jason to send me a picture in the wintertime from Mount Hood and he's in his happy place in the trees on his cross country skis. I mean, you're an exceptional athlete as well. So
Thank you.
I'm glad that you have been able
I'm
to hang
practicing
on.
accepting compliments here. Yeah,
Good. I'll
no,
just keep them coming.
but keep them coming. It's, yeah, feels a lot better than it used to. We definitely share that, absolutely. And I feel lucky every day to have this body. I'm sure you experience this, especially, with your challenges that you've experienced. To have this body that can move freely without chronic pain for now. And every day I feel that sense of gratitude and awareness that things could be very different and are for many people. Being able to access nature, I think we can do that anywhere, whether it's a little park in a big city or the wild. Portland is surrounded by green space. So you have this wall of not old growth forest, but it's very old, with very large Douglas fir trees. And you can get lost in that maybe 5 minutes from downtown. So I spend a lot of time there. And every time it resets me, it feels like more perspective. The little day to day things don't seem to matter as much. We've talked about this. What is it about nature that creates that effect that brings us some perspective? And I think a lot of it is just seeing the life cycle. I feel this way, especially in old growth forest that you have like on the coast in Oregon, for example. It's you see the life cycle, you see how small we are, including in the time perspective.
Yes.
The joy of feeling our insignificance.
This is so in your DNA. You were born in the Pacific Northwest. You've lived all over the world and certainly traveled all over the world, but this place has meaning to you. I know that as a mental health therapist, you need those moments to yourself in order to come back and show up strong for your clients and patients. Um, and modern medicine also has played a significant role in your health, especially when it comes to mental health. First off, I want to thank you for your willingness to share your own personal experience and be
Absolutely.
vulnerable. And this is your career as well. So you can speak to it not only personally, but from this high academic clinician level. Can you talk to us about your relationship to medication and how you've come to see it as a part of a broader path to well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about it. I think that one of the best things that we can do as humans, not only therapists, of course, is talk about our experiences. I think it helps somebody in the room, somebody out there to feel less alone, kind of normalizing things. I feel like so many of us are experiencing psychological pain and emotional discomfort. So, it could be a crowded room, and so many in that room have crossover experiences. And of course, at a cocktail party, you're not necessarily going to want to divulge everything, but I think in certain contexts that feel safe, it can really be beneficial. I noticed from an early age, my twin brother as well. We're a decent twin study. I think if it were like a Freaky Friday situation where we were separated at birth, it would be an even better experiment. But we definitely have the biological component, of course, in common being identical. And so I'd say from like age maybe even 5 to 10, we both knew that we were different in the sense of feeling more alone or feeling anxious and amped up or that kind of dark feeling. And that continued to progress up until around the time that you and I met. And not to say I haven't had episodes since then, but that's when I finally got over my interior, I guess, internal barriers to getting treatment, taking medication. Like you hear many times, it was a lifesaver and life changer for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but I would say for people with diagnosable major depressive disorder, bipolar, any mood disorders, chronic anxiety disorders, medications are a really solid option for a lot of people. And then we have to weigh out potential side effects. They're not always there in a significant way with the huge benefit that we can experience. I've been lucky that the meds have worked well in conjunction with therapy and doing our personal work, whatever that looks like. I think it's therapy for many people. There's also journaling. There's also just trying to be mindful of our own experience, talking with people about it. There's a lot of personal work that we can do other than taking medication.
I've watched you near and from afar take the management of your mental health very seriously and approach it with discipline. I know that's multifaceted. You're working with your own professionals to make sure that that medication is serving you and that you're functioning well on it. What kind of professionals do people need to be working with if they suspect that medication for depression or anxiety is a possibility for them?
Great. Psychiatrists, I'll just name them. There's some variance from state to state, but generally a psychiatrist, so an MD who's been to med school with the specialty of psychiatry. And that's kind of the top line for many people to get that expertise, especially if it's a more complicated depression, anxiety, mood disorder, a mental health condition to treat. Some are more complicated. So a psychiatrist could be a good option. Another one is advanced practice RN, someone who's got their RN for nursing and then continuing to got their master's degree, and then they can also prescribe medication. And I find that some psychiatric nurse practitioners are some of the best, I think, in terms of prescribing meds. I know I'm generalizing here. Plenty of great psychiatrists out there. So APRN or nurse practitioner, same thing, psychiatrists. And then a lot of MDs who are not psychiatrists prescribe a lot of medication. Being America, right? We like our pills. But I think that's one reason that taking medication can get a bad rap, including among people within our communities and industries that are more holistically focused. I think it can get a bad rap. But I think that's a very wide brush to use in terms of are meds good or bad? It's not like that. So getting the right dosage, right, from an expert. We're also the experts. I always try to drive this home with my clients. We're the only experts on our life experience and what it feels like and is like to be in our brains and bodies. Nobody else knows. So as a professional, I have the privilege of getting close to people as close as I can, and that they feel comfortable letting me. And still, right, they're the only ones who know. And a lot of words roundabout to answer your question. There's definitely some good options out there. You could just go to your primary care physician, and then they would decide if it's something that they'd be willing to treat or pass it on to psychiatrist or nurse practitioner who specializes in that.
Thanks for that direction. Do you see modern medicine moving in a direction, and not only medicine, but society and culture, that includes both medication and nature as pathways to healing?
Yes, in a word, I'd say overall, the sum total, there's all kinds, and we live in a very polarized world. I don't have to tell anyone that living in America right now, or who opens the news anywhere in the world. It's intense. So I think nuance is a key word here that is lost in the conversation often, and every case is different. But I do feel like COVID, a lot of people went to therapy for the first time, started medication for the first time, if necessary. And I think that really has cut through a lot of the stigma. There's a noticeable shift. And you look at like BetterHelp and those online therapy resources, they're not hurting
Exploding, aren't
business-wise.
they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is great. That means a lot more people are getting access to clinicians like yourself.
Yeah. I think we are moving in the right direction. Awareness. That's key. And then we can make our decisions about what we want to do. Getting good information, right? We all have opinions about medicine, whether Eastern, Western, whatever it is. I think doing a little bit of research, talking with friends, family, consulting, people that know us well, or if you have an identical twin brother. I would say he was kind of the guinea pig. He
Was
kind of
he?
led the way with the meds. It's like, let's see how you do. See what happens. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and it really helped. It's what I needed to overcome my kind of fears about taking meds. So, and they worked well for him. So I was like, I'll take one of those, and worked well for me too. Consistently, we've been on the same meds. We joke about it a lot. I think it's pretty hilarious, but twin stuff.
You two are a riot.
Yeah, we're a lot of things among that. We're a force. Twin
You are a
tornadoes,
force.
some people call it.
Twin tornadoes. I love that. Well, I want us to explore one more piece of territory here, if you don't mind. Kind of paint a day to day in the life of Jason for us. I know you to be so active, so social. Traveling is one of your passions. You keep your people close in relationships across the board, family and friends. I've seen you do this throughout the years. What does a life in the day of Jason Durtschi look like?
Thank you for all that. I feel like I should pay you for this conversation. What's your
Really?
rate? Absolutely. I am not going to pretend that I've got it all together. I don't think anyone does. I'll paint the picture of my ideal day. How's that? Not like completely on the end of, the standard deviation. So somewhere within the norm. I wake up and I find that it's really helpful to have rituals in the morning. So whether it's coffee or tea, find a little space to take 10 minutes to meditate and then 5 minutes to stretch and do yoga like things. 5, 6, 7 hours of working with therapy clients. Between each session, I'm trying to be really committed to taking at least 5 minutes walking around the block, grabbing some water, whatever I need to do to disconnect and reground a bit. And then at the end of the workday, I'd say every day, just about, unless something wild is going on, some kind of exercise. Usually trail running, since it's so accessible here in Portland. Go to the gym, which is super helpful, which you know all about, Melanie, through all your experience. And then I like to stand up paddleboard here in the summer, and in the winter, cross-country skiing. Skate skiing is my favorite. Of course, I'm not going to ski every day. Every day is a little different, but that's what I do to self-care my way through the life of a therapist. It's a specific kind of uh, uh, burnout if we're not careful. I feel like every profession has that potential, and therapy just has its own version of that, and it can creep up on us. Right? I want to be there as best I can for each of my clients. If I go in already feeling a little saturated or kind of crusty, whatever the word is, you really need to step into that role, and it helps. Self-care makes all the difference. So.
Thanks for sharing that with us. And I know that you're kind of a foodie.
I like food. I like
You don't
good
have
food.
to tell us exactly what you eat, but you and I did have an offline conversation about this the other day that was really fun. I've seen you explore with paleo and different
Oh my
diets, but
God. I
ultimately
try to.
you do a good job fueling that movement and activity. You're thoughtful about it. It's no accident, We'll save the nutrition for another episode, but
Yeah, no, I think we do our best. I try not to take myself too seriously with most things. It's just kind of how I try to live. Nutrition is and exercise. These are serious things in terms of well-being, of course, right? What we put in our bodies and how we treat them. Like you can't get more important than that in our brains. But yeah, I cheat plenty. I love Ben and Jerry's. I just do. It's my favorite.
Ben and Jerry's, oh, delish.
We don't need to put a plug in for them. They're doing fine business-wise. But no, but I think the day to day, I think it's important, just like our staples. And I try to keep that.
Learnings. I would love it if you can share with people how they may be able to connect with you or work with you or follow you.
The Tree of Life Counseling and Coaching.com. It's a long URL, but just like it sounds. So.
I'm going to include your website link in the show notes. Again, Jason, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. So much fun. I
Talk to you soon, my friend.
See you, Melanie.
Bye. From nature walks to prescriptions, Jason's story is a great example of how healing is not a one-size-fits-all formula. Jason's going to be back on the show in a few weeks, and we're switching gears just a little bit. Jason is going to dive in and share with us how he helps his therapy clients stay calm while life is happening. Think stress, chaos, big emotions, and teach us how to build real-time awareness instead of just reacting. Spoiler alert, it's not all breathing exercises and sage. So don't miss episode 2 with Jason Durtschi. We'll see you back on the Mindful Trainer podcast soon. If you found value in today's discussion, please consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, but it also fuels our mission to explore the intersection of mental and physical health. To stay connected and receive updates on future episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and additional resources, visit webbwell.com, that's webbwell.com, and sign up for our newsletter. Let's continue this journey of growth and mindfulness together.